Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at the Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com set to bring us a little bit of a matchup to look for. This one's difficult, Andrew, I guess, because we don't know what matchups we might get. We'll do our best to try to break down what the Washington football team actually has. What do they have? 21 players now on the COVID list, including 11 starters for the game on Sunday. I would imagine that it's got to be tough for Philadelphia to be preparing for a team where they don't know who's going to play.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous that just the sizable amount of players that are going to be out of this game. I mean, it's not going to be overly competitive. I mean, the NFL has been hell-bent on getting these games off, and as evidenced by last season when the Denver Broncos had to start a wide receiver named Kendall Hinton at quarterback last season. So obviously the show must go on, but I'm trying to figure out who's going to play and who's not going to play and trying to look at the matchups, but it's pretty challenging.
I don't know where you feel the quarterback situation for Philadelphia is going to sit, but yesterday most gave us about a 50% that Hurts plays. Do you think it's a strong possibility that Jalen is not ready to go for Sunday?
I think it's up in the air. I'm right there with Jeff. It's kind of going to be a wait-and-see approach. Obviously, Nick Sirianni's not going to show his cards from a competitive standpoint, even though Washington's ravaged with all kinds of players going to be out of the lineup. I think just from a competitive standpoint, he's not going to sort of tip his hand one way or the other. But, yeah, I mean, Gardner Minshew could start, or it could be Jalen Hurts. I mean, I think that we're all going to kind of have a better understanding of what it's going to be on Saturday as we get closer to the game.
Yeah, obviously we are at Thursday. Tomorrow will be the official designation. The practice injury report did come out a little while ago, and on that you did have Jalen Hurts as limited again. So did Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders, which is interesting there too, because you got both running backs on the limited spot there. But Jalen Hurts is the big name. He was limited participant today in practice. And let's take a look at the matchups for this game, as we like to do on a Thursday, where we break this down. The Philadelphia offensive line, who knows what they're going to see up front, but if Washington is as depleted as they are, my gosh, you could almost have like a Bill Belichick game plan here and just say, we're just going to run it at this team all day.
I mean, that's the approach that I would have, and not try and get too cute. And if there's going to be running lanes there, so you're going to have to exploit that and stay with it, and that should be the direct path to victory, not by trying to force the quarterback into a offensive game plan that's not really suited to that he's not much suited for. I would tend to lean on the running backs, even if for some reason Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard, or one or the other isn't in the lineup. You still have a capable stable of running backs in Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell that could pick up the slack and help get you that win.
Yeah, I know that the Eagles' offensive line is, one of the better ones in the league. The Washington football team, typically, Andrew, they're pretty good up front, right? When they're healthy, they're one of the better units in football.
Defensive line, absolutely, yeah.
So you get a big advantage with them having some problems there. Let's take a look at the Eagles on the outside if they want to throw the ball. Devontae Smith, obviously. Quez Watkins might be out for the game. But how is the secondary of the Washington football team?
It's all right. They're definitely beatable. I mean, you have a guy like Kendall Fuller, William Jackson III, Landon Collins. Landon Collins is more of a linebacker playing safety back there. I think there's going to be an opportunity for Dallas Goedert to really threaten vertically the seam there and make him really have to cover. And I think on the outside, Mike, there's still going to be opportunities to strike. Even without, let's say, Quez isn't there, I think that you'll find that you might be able to see a couple of targets to Jalen Reagor, and he might be able to find some success down the field, or perhaps a Greg Ward or a Tyree Jackson if you want to try and utilize the short to intermediate area of the field. That's going to be available all day for these quarterbacks, whichever quarterback starts, for them to exploit.
I think Fuller's actually out for the game, too, so there's another guy who could be down. And,
there you go.
When we talked way back in August or July when we're looking through these teams, this defense last year was one of the premier defenses in the league. Heck, it almost won them a playoff game against Tampa Bay last year. They really have shored their defense up the last couple of weeks, but where were they really struggling early in the season that put them behind? They were 2-6 at one point, and a lot of it was because their defense was so bad.
Yeah, I think it was due to the secondary woes. I think that there's a lot of moving parts there at that time, and they're starting to sort of gel. They were starting to gel. Obviously, they hit a little bit of a speed bump here this week, but I think that's really what was setting them back. Also, the quarterback change, that's the most obvious, and I think that Taylor Heineke getting situated as a starting quarterback and getting into a rhythm, and the running game also wasn't very efficient either. Antonio Gibson was struggling mightily, but sort of hit that second half surge at the right time. So I think it's a culmination of things starting to fire on all cylinders at the right time.
Yeah, we're talking with Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4 from the InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast. Of course, here on Football at 4, we look at Eagles and the Washington football team. Now, Andrew, the defense of Washington, all sorts of issues. Let's flip the script and look at where their offense looks like against Philadelphia. They want to run the ball with Gibson. You mentioned Tyler Heineke. McLaurin, he's up in the air. He's got a concussion situation. So what are the Washington football team offensively?
Well, I think what they want to do is they want to run the football at a high frequency and not put too much on Taylor Heineke. Obviously, McLaurin's still in concussion protocol, as you said, and I have a feeling he's going to play this week. McKissick is also up in the air as well, which is pretty interesting because I think he presents a lot of matchup problems as a movable chess piece, very fast, can get to the corner and really create some explosive plays there. Curtis Samuel's another player who's up in the air. He's another dynamic type of player who is what I imagine the Eagles envisioned Jalen Reagor being. And so, I mean, if he's not in the mix, that really makes them a little bit easier to defend because he can do a lot of different things in both the running and receiving game. So, I mean, it's tough to say what they're going to do. You don't know who's in, who's out. But yeah. I think if they have their choice, they're going to, have Antonio Gibson carry the ball 20, 22 times this game.
You're right, man. I mean, usually we do a breakdown here, and you're rattling off guys because you have a good understanding. I mean, this is an uncharted situation. They got 11 starters on the COVID list here, 21 in all. I'm imagining, who's the guy that Philadelphia had? He was the Casey Toohill, right? He's over there. You thought he might get some playing time. I think he's on the COVID list now. So they're so far down the depth chart of guys, you're just kind of looking around. But I want to pick your brain on their offensive line because it looked like for the 4-game win streak, they had, they were running the ball, churning out some yards. But I thought last week their offensive line kind of had a rough day at the office against Dallas.
Yeah, well, they're not really equipped to withstand a long period of time. I wouldn't say they're not going to be able to play competent football. I mean, I like Brandon Scherf a lot, their right guard. I think he's a really strong player, and I think moving Eric Flowers, who really struggled, he was a Giants draft pick. He really struggled as a tackle. I think moving him to guard has really sort of given him a new lease on life in the NFL, and he's been effective there somewhat. But, I mean, then you have Tyler Larson. He's all right at center, and then Charles Leno Jr. at left tackle. He's just a replacement-level starter. So these guys sort of were playing above their skill level. And I think once you get a confident defensive line, they're going to be able to exploit that, and that's what you saw last week. So the Eagles' defensive line has to be pinning their ears back and licking their chops a little bit, given the matchup ahead.
Yeah, and then, Logan Thomas, he's another guy. He doesn't have COVID, but he's out for the year because of injury. He's an athletic tight end that, you would figure could give Philadelphia problems. And I don't know how much the tight end will now be a factor with Logan Thomas out because he's one of the better ones in the league. He's got the ACL. He's out. So they're really Washington coming in. They felt like a feel-good team a couple of weeks ago, and now they just feel like they are a complete mess here as they enter this game against Philadelphia. And, of course, Andrew, both these teams are tied for the 7th spot with Washington currently in there. We know that if Philly wins, they'll jump over Washington. But when you look at this wild card situation, this game on Sunday, how important is it for the team that wins? In terms of it, to me anyway, it allows you to at least slip up maybe down the road. I mean, if you lose this game on Sunday, either one of these teams, you almost have to win out, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. This game on Sunday is incredibly important for both teams, and I think that obviously the Eagles have the edge here, given the situation of the shortage of players that the Washington football team has at their disposal this weekend. So I think that, the Eagles have an advantage this week, and they really need to, because it does give you a very minor room for margin for error, down the next few games. But really, the Eagles really need to win out. Obviously, the toss-up could be the last game of the season against Dallas, but like I said, you have to you don't want to have that mindset. You don't want to get complacent because you win this game, or because you don't want to go into this week complacent because of Washington's situation. You have to go in there assuming that they're at full strength and approach it that way, because that you need to carry that momentum into the final stretch of games.
Well, right, and it's almost like I don't know, like Minnesota, Atlanta, New Orleans, they're all, everybody's 6-7. It almost feels the way this season's going that everybody's going to split 2-2 and all be tied, and you're going to go into crazy tiebreakers. It's like, which of those teams, Washington, Minnesota, Philadelphia, Atlanta, New Orleans, I don't know if I'm missing a team, but which of those teams can win 3 out of their last 4? I think that's the team that ends up getting. If one of those can win 3 out of 4, they're going to get in.
Maybe Minnesota, I would say. I mean, the Saints have a really good defense, but their quarterback situation is abysmal and very streaky. So I don't know that you can necessarily count them, give them 3 wins automatically, no matter how good their defense is, or Sean Payton. So what I would do is I would look at the Minnesota Vikings as being the team that has the inside track, just given their veteran quarterback, their defense, their running game, and their combination of receivers that they have there. They have the pieces in place to make a decent run. I think that they still have some flaws on their team, so I don't know how far they would get should they get into the playoffs. But I think right now, to answer your question, they're the team that I have circled.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Of all the teams here, though, schedule-wise, we went through all the schedules, and it looks like they're all set up to be 2-2. I would imagine that Philadelphia playing Washington twice and the Giants, that they have the best shot to get to the 3 out of the last 4 here. But that's why this game is so big on Sunday against Washington. A very beat-up Washington team will be here in Philadelphia. We don't know who's going to be the starting quarterback for Philly yet. That still hasn't been determined. I do want to get some thoughts on tonight's game from you, because this is another game. It's for the division lead in the AFC West. The winner of this game would be in first place. The Chargers have beaten the Chiefs already once this year, so they would be tied record-wise, but the Chargers would be in first place if they win, and, of course, if the Chiefs win. So kind of give us some thoughts on these two, because they're both healthy.
Right, and on paper, this looks like it's going to be a shootout. And I was talking to Josh off air, and I said, just when you think that you're going to get a good Thursday night game, it wouldn't surprise me if this one ends like 10-3 or 13-6 or something like that. I mean, every time I get excited for a matchup or intrigued, you sort of get they turn into snooze fest. So we'll see how it goes. But on paper, I think this is going to be a really dynamic matchup. Interested to see how these teams respond. Like you said, they're both healthy. I like the Chargers in this matchup. They're at home, and I think that they struggled earlier in the season, but I think they're starting to hit their stride now. Kansas City has not been a reliable or dependable team all season long. They have the potential, but you can't just turn it on and turn it off whenever you feel like it. I think that the Chargers have. I love what Austin Eckler is going to be able to do in this matchup. I think he's going to be just such a prominent fixture on offense for them this week, and the receivers. I like the Kansas City's defense is really, really shoddy, right? So I think that's going to always
turn it around a bit, though. They've turned it around a little bit here.
Yeah, a little bit, but competent offenses are going to be able to take advantage of their limited personnel. So I like what Justin Herbert's going to be able to do, at least on paper. So I'm going to give the edge to the Chargers.
All right. Andrew DiCecco, Here's the key question that nobody can answer for us yesterday because no one seems to really have a feel of these teams. The AFC North, who wins that division? Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, or will Pittsburgh with that tie figure out a way to get on top? Because, man, there is flaws everywhere inside the North.
Well, I'm going to cross off the Browns. I'm going to cross off the Steelers. I think it's going to come down to the Ravens and the Bengals. And, obviously, Lamar Jackson is such a dynamic talent that you never want to rule him out of anything. But their defense has not been the Baltimore Ravens' stout defense of old. So I'm leaning Cincinnati, actually, because I like what they have from a receiving standpoint and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I think Joe Burrow's really taken a big next step in his development in his second season. They have a lot of young pieces there on defense. So I think it's finally they have a good mix of talent and finally have that culture and discipline and structure to really make that surge. So I think this might be the Bengals' year to come out on top in that division.
Okay, a couple more with Andrew DiCecco. This has been fun, looking at all the different things that have happened to lead up to these wild cards. But there was a time where some people thought Buffalo was the best team in the league. Are they a playoff team, though? Do you see Buffalo getting in at 7-6 right now?
Yeah, that's such a puzzling team because it's kind of hard to imagine them not making the playoffs, just given their talent. But, they have not played to their ability, and they've gotten exploited a little bit in certain areas of their game. They don't have much of a running game to speak of, and they're asking Josh Allen to do so much. And really, obviously, the offense runs through him, but you have to have some sort of a complementary offense in order to be successful, especially when you get into the January games. So I think that they do squeak in, to answer your question. But they've definitely underperformed this season, and I don't know. I before the season started, Mike, I had the Bills and the Rams as my Super Bowl pick. Now I don't know if they get out of the wild card weekend because they're just a very turbulent team right now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to pick them with confidence.
It is. They are the 7th seed right now. Indianapolis is 7-6. Buffalo is 7-6. They are the 6 and 7. Cleveland is 7-6. Cincinnati 7-6. Denver is 7-6. And then you have a couple teams, Pittsburgh, Vegas, and Miami, all 6 and 7. So you've got a bunch of teams fighting for those 2 playoff spots in the AFC. And if the Chargers lose tonight, they're going to have 6 losses. So that wild card on that side up for grabs. Really everything on that side is up for grabs because Tennessee is a very flawed team now as well without Henry. So the AFC wild. On the NFC side of things, Hopkins getting hurt for Arizona. How much does that concern you for Arizona in terms of winning the division now? They're only a game up on the Rams.
Yeah, that's a big blow for them. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is a premier wide receiver in the National Football League, but they have done a good job of stocking the offense so that if one player goes down, it sort of just doesn't, you don't just fold up. I think that they have adding Zach Ertz was a huge piece. You have Christian Kirk, who can be a complimentary receiver. You have Chase Evans, who should be back. Obviously, James Conner. So I think that they have enough there to sort of secure that. But I think obviously anytime you lose a top end receiver like DeAndre Hopkins, that's going to be a big blow.
Last one, Andrew. A lot of good football talk as we're getting late in the season here. Will the Eagles-Dallas game in the final week mean anything for Dallas, or do you think they will be locked into the 4th spot?
Just given the way the season is sort of gone, I think by the time that they reach that week, I think that they're going to have it all locked up. They'll have that 4th spot locked up. So
they won't be able to move up?
I don't think so. I think the Eagles need to take care of business and let the chips fall where they may and get to that final week and let it all play out. But I think if I had to guess right now, without factoring in anything like what we're seeing with the Washington football team, I think that Dallas should have that 4th spot locked up.
All right, and you just made the point right there. We have no idea what to expect with who's going to show up and play from week to week on Saturday.
We don't know.
We don't know if Stefanski and Baker Mayfield look like they're going to be out, so that changes the whole dynamic. of the game on Saturday. Of course, we'll have more on Football at 4 tomorrow on the Eagles quarterback situation. Adam Kaplan will be here. He is Andrew DiCecco. He'll be back on Tuesday to look back at the Eagles and the Washington football team. And, of course, he joined us here on Football at 4. All right, Andrew, take care, bud.
You too, Mike.
That's Andrew DiCecco, DiCecco NFL on Twitter. Follow him over there for all his NFL and Eagles coverage. And, of course, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash